Good afternoon. This is Media Center Ukraine, Odessa. We are starting for today. We inform you the most important news. Our guest now is Vira Yastrebova, lawyer, director of the NGO Східна правозахисна група. Vira and her colleagues monitor continuously violation of human rights on the occupied territories, kidnapping of people, forced mobilization, etc. Vira, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. I'm happy to participate in today's briefing and to inform mass media and all people who are interested in the topic about the violation of human rights on the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. My colleagues and I have been collecting information since 2014 to monitor the situation on the temporarily occupied territories. With the full-scale invasion, the occupied territories have been expanded and leading to the increased number of cases of violation of human rights. I would like to thank Media Center Odessa for providing platform to my colleagues and me for us to be able inform about the situation there. For the last 2 weeks, we have prepared new information, and I would like to report it to you now. Everyone knows about the order of the International Criminal Court that was issued to arrest Putin. This is true. But the order has not stopped the processes like medical filtration of children on the temporarily occupied territories. And now this process covers not only orphans, but those children who learn at schools and are in kindergartens. They have introduced forced medical filtration of the children there. They have introduced quite a specific medical examination, and the information about health of the children is registered in a special database. This information is then used for further deportation of children. The Russian Federation shows a fascist approach. They filtrate people with excellent health and with good results at school. So they live on the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. People, children with impairments, with some health problems, and the healthy children are deported to the Russian Federation, where they get documents of Russian citizens. The active passportization is ongoing on the temporarily occupied territories on behalf of the Russian Federation. The legal consequences for Ukrainian citizens who are forced to get Russian passports is being discussed. But the passportization has been expanded, and now it covers not only representatives of different authorities and enterprises, but also pensioners who cannot get their pensions and social support if they refuse from receiving Russian passports. We understand that people there are in very difficult conditions, including financial conditions, and they are de facto and actually forced to get Russian passports. They are blackmailed, and people are afraid they will not be able to get to social payments, medical care, etc. So the occupiers do everything possible for the people who refuse to get Russian passports to get access to the basic social services, endangering their physical existence. We need to remember about this, and we need to take this into consideration when the legal destiny of our people who are forced to get Russian passports in the future. We need to take into consideration all these facts. There is still a question: what is the state of the enterprises there? When it comes to industry, when it comes to mines on the occupied territories, the occupiers see that the forced mobilization there is not very popular. They don't pay people their salary, so the salary has not been paid for more than 5 months now. Thus, miners are offered to join illegal military formations. So what do I mean by saying they offer? These people are just sent to mobilization centers and further to the front line. So the task of the Russian Federation is to destroy everything Ukrainian, to kill Ukrainians, and to bring the population from the Russian Federation who are ready to occupy houses of Ukrainians, use their property, and to use the situation for their benefit. So when they say that this is just a Putin's idea, that only Putin should be blamed for the war, I would like to say that this idea has hands and the people who make it possible to implement this idea into life, and also the introduction of this shameful Kremlin policy is done by Russians. The Russians, they get hired into the local occupation administrations. Those people who now serve in the new quasi-courts on the occupied territories of Ukraine. Everything would have been impossible without the consent of Russians. That's why it is a very problematic issue, because we understand that now the Russian Federation is trying to create an imaginary proof of having a full life on the occupied territories of Ukraine. Unfortunately, the new institutions and authorities are there with Russians serving there. So this is a repressive machine. I would like to share several facts with you for you to understand the scale of those repressions. In the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine in April and May, 2023, more than 1,000 arrests and prosecutions of people who refused to receive a passport of a citizens of the Russian Federation were recorded. Arrests are carried out by coordination groups of Russian security forces, including the migration servants of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Russian Federation. There are also 79 cases of detention of locals, saying that they work for Ukrainian special forces. So now they blame people for serving in the special security forces of Ukraine. And this is the basis for further repressions like illegal detention, illegal accountability to suppress the protest potential of the local population who is waiting for the liberation of their cities, towns, and villages, and the people there are also waiting for the legal framework to return to their territories for their proper life and existence and work, to be able to recover their businesses, their life, and to have the prospects of free life in a democratic countries. People are now deprived of all of this. But still, there are people who refuse to get Russian passports. They oppose this. But we need to remind about this all the time. We need to say that we should not consider people on the temporarily occupied territories as collaborators. Me, as the civil activist, the lawyer, I believe that these people are hostages. As for children, after forced medical filtering, children of 14 years old and older are included in the centralized lists, and their data are provided further for them to get Russian passports. So Russia tries to deprive Ukraine of Ukrainians with this forced citizenship. There have been recorded cases when parents refused to change the documents of their children. But the parents are then interrogated, like a woman from Solidar who was detained. She was put under sanctions, and after numerous interrogations, she consented for her children to get Russian passports, because they threat parents with the following. They say that if parents refuse to consent for Russian passports for their children, thus depriving their children of medical and educational services, violating rights of the children. This is the position of the occupier. So those parents who don't want their children to become rather citizenship are threatened with depriving rights of for their children. So they have a choice just to continue discussions with the militants there, or to agree for their children to get Russian passports. As for detentions, there has been an increased number of detentions. This can be related to the preparations to the election campaigns, so they try to clear up the electoral field to show to our Western partners and to the whole world that the Russian Federation will be there forever. For them, it is very important to create illusion of the support of the Russian Federation on the temporarily occupied territories. As for the property right on the temporarily occupied territories, the right has not been executed there. Some people believe that they have some unusual communication skills and that they will be ready to preserve their business there. Those people who are still disillusioned are recommended to look at the destiny of the businesses of Luhansk and Donetsk oblasts and the newly occupied territories. People there also believed that it would be possible for them to preserve their property. But armed militants are not interested in business cooperation with you. Armed militants can just take everything from you. And we have examples that date back to 2014 in Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast, and we have new examples in Kherson Oblast when they take land plots, machinery from people. So all the things that allowed people to work in the agricultural sector and to earn money. Believe me, Russian Federation does not need its representatives among the local population. They have the whole queue of people from their country who are ready to come there and to take everything from Ukrainians. That's why I would like to call for people not to have empty hopes like Plan B, and to support the armed forces of Ukraine, to consolidate for our country to be supported by Western partners, and they should also donate to the armed forces of Ukraine and to do everything possible for the occupied territories to be liberated as soon as possible, because people are kept hostage there. They suffer there. They are not protected, and they cannot oppress that machine. What else the Russian Federation has been doing on the temporarily occupied territories? They have been preparing to the election, and the representatives, the staff of the enterprises and businesses and companies are forced to join the Russian party Единая Россия, Single Russia. They need this to support the myth that Putin, Kremlin elites are supported there. Now they have been forcibly putting people in the lists of supporters of the Russian party to create an illusion that this is the willingness of the local population to support the policy, and this is not an occupation, but the next stage in their political environment. Unfortunately, there are cases of forced inclusion in the list. In some cases, people are even not aware that they were included in those lists. All registers that have been created by Russia on the temporarily occupied territories have two objectives. For children, this is the differentiation of children for further deportation that has not stopped there. So if there is someone hesitant to follow the order of the International Criminal Court, the crime is still there, and we have been submitting this information to representatives of our authorities who cooperate with the detectives and the prosecutors of the International Criminal Court for the criminals to be brought to the responsibility. And to finalize my speech, I would like to say the following. I would like now to address mass media and all other interested people. The situation is very difficult now, and we understand that artillery attacks and the pressure put by the Russian Federation affects our life. But we need to understand that we have Ukrainian citizens who suffer even more because there is no legal field, there is no legal protection, and there is no possibility even to get some basic services like medical care and education for their children. The people who are endangered to be forcibly mobilized to illegal military units, the impossibility to work, to earn money, to support their families. Some of the people are raped, and we understand that the destiny of these people, the destiny of the territories, and therefore the reintegration is in our hands. So please take interest in what is happening on the temporarily occupied territories, because we need to raise awareness about the processes there, and it will make it possible to include these individual cases to the materials, which will be important to bring to liability military criminals who make Ukrainian people suffer. That's why I try to briefly inform you about the violations there. And I would like to thank once again the Media Center Ukraine Odessa for providing this possibility and for supporting me even from the technical point of view, making our meetings with you regular, giving me possibility to share the information about the situation on the temporarily occupied territories. Thank you. Thank you for your report. Thank you for your gratitude. We're always happy to see you here. I have the following question. Recently, Russia introduced amendments simplifying the forced deportation from the occupied territories of Ukraine, like Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia oblasts. What changes do you expect with this new legislation that allows allegedly to take people and to bring them to the territory of the Russian Federation? At the end of April 2023, Putin signed the relevant order of the President of the Russian Federation, de facto introducing the further deportation of Ukrainian people. I think that these thick plans of the Kremlin dictator will never be introduced in life, because those territories are the territories of Ukraine, and they will be occupied in the nearest future. But what is the meaning of the mentioned order? This is the last attempt in this long blackmail of the local population. I'd like to remind what happened in April 2022. There were also orders with which Putin tried to expand the amount of people who could be forcibly passportized without the passports of quasi-formation in Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast. So they try to ensure the conditions to issue as many Russian passports as possible. What is new in this order of April 2023? Now, they want to petrify people, saying that they can lose their properties. And the order came into force on the 1st of April 2023. But even before the order, they had already started stealing property from people. They introduced temporarily administrations using Russian citizens who came to Ukrainian lands to stall Ukrainian business. That order is yet another attempt to make people to get Russian passports, to include those people into the election process. So before they used some lists and they include people into the list of the supporters of the single Russia party. Now they want people to join the party. So they want to find some new tools to issue even more Russian passports before the election. And that's why the order was issued. Thank you for your comment with regard to those activities of the Russian government to aim to deporting Ukrainians from the occupied territories and to make their life even worse. Thank you very much, Vira, for the briefing. We will invite you here in perhaps 2 weeks for you to be sharing the information about the occupied territories. The next briefing will be at noon. It will be dedicated to the insurance business during the full scale. What are the changes in payments, how the property can be insured now, how people can get compensation for the damaged or destroyed properties. Please stay tuned.